Let's talk about the most dropped players, and no surprise, somebody like Kenyon Drake and Logan Thomas, guys who are dealing with injuries. Drake not expected to play the rest of the season. Thomas on IR. Corey Davis also going to miss the rest of the season as well. But you see Boston Scott on this list, Heath, and we know they're on a bye. Jordan Howard dealing with an injury. Miles Sanders dealing with an injury. Our fantasy manager's making a mistake, dropping Boston Scott now.
I kind of want to hold on to all the Eagles. And he's on the number one on the most dropped list, the Eagles defense. I don't really want to drop them with the Washington football team, the Giants, and the Washington football team in the fantasy playoffs. But yes, I think Sanders, Scott, and Howard should all be rostered in most leagues because we just don't know who's going to be the guy that's healthy coming out of their bye week. And whoever that guy is, I just talked about the matchup, they should be in games that are at least close enough that they're running the ball 25, 30 times a game with their running backs. Any of these guys could be a starting running back in Week 15.
Yep, Sanders probably still the lead guy, but we haven't seen Sanders healthy and Howard healthy since Howard became a thing when Sanders initially went down with the ankle injury. So if you have the opportunity to still roster them, yes, I think it's probably a little bit too soon to be dropping the Eagles running backs, unless, of course, you have to make a move for other positions. The Bills running backs, is there any of them worth rostering at this point? Taking on Tampa Bay this week, the schedule is not favorable moving forward. And as we've seen, even with one guy being a healthy scratch in terms of Zach Moss 2 weeks ago, there's no must-start option from Buffalo's backfield.
No, I would drop all of the Bills running backs to pick up all of the Eagles running backs just because I think there's a chance that one of the Eagles might be usable. If I had to roster one of these Bills for some reason, it would still be Devin Singletary, but he's a high-end flex at best.
Yeah, it's just tough to trust. They don't use him in the passing game to a high extent. And last week we saw, because probably the weather in Buffalo against the Patriots, they were using all three of those guys, but the game before that it was Zach Moss as the healthy scratch. In terms of the wide receivers in Baltimore, Rashad Bateman's being dropped, understandably so, did not have a fantasy stat in week 13, and we've seen this offense start to struggle a little bit in terms of the passing game. So Sami Watkins just scored his first touchdown. You heard some rumblings that Devin Duvernay could be used in sort of a hybrid role. We hadn't really seen that yet to the extent I think that would make him relevant, but is it just really at this point Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews, and that's about it for Baltimore's receiving corps?
Yeah, you can't have any faith in Bateman. The only reason that I might want to keep him on a roster is just in case something happened to Marquise Brown. But even in that instance, it kind of seems like Sami Watkins might just become the number one wide receiver. It doesn't seem like Bateman is on Watkins' level quite yet when Watkins is healthy. And like you said, Duvernay does some of the stuff that's not typical wide receiver stuff, and so they need to keep him on the field as well. It's just hard for Bateman to find a spot right now.
All right, so we'll see what happens with Rashad Bateman coming out of the Browns game this week, but not somebody that you're starting, and if you're not starting him, you might want to consider dropping him as the roster trends indicate.